Well, I've completed that London series now, the collection for that. Quite fun to do, nice to go back to some tonal work again. And I'll show you those in just a moment. But in this case, Trevor, who's hopefully going to be promoting and working out my new Peterwood Arts Academy, we're going to start setting up films for beginners right through to experts in these different techniques and methods and make it far more coherent. So we're setting up a new business, if you like, where he's going to edit out and put together and advise me on what he thinks is required for you from all levels and abilities. And we're going to start marketing courses online and so on for you. So he's very kindly promoting this and has the expertise to do so. In the meantime, he wants to learn to paint himself, and hopefully this coming year, maybe this winter, I'm going over to South Africa, all being well. I'd love to do it for a few weeks to paint with him, to film, and also to teach him painting over there. So we'll not only film my painting there and South Africa itself, we'll also teach him, we'll also show my teaching him to paint, and he'll be following instruction as I paint as well, which will be quite fun to see. So he's going to be at the working end of it. When I first met him, he introduced himself on the internet and showed me some problems he was having with painting. Now, as I say in my artwork, I don't say that I'm the be and end all of anything. I just have methods that work for me, and I've learnt a lot over the years, and I've made mistakes, and I'm trying to share how I got over those mistakes and the wonderful things I've learnt and the things I enjoy with you. There are so many different ways to paint. And if you tried to emulate everybody, you'd go totally mad, because there are so many great artists and so many great ways to paint. It's a whole plethora. There are just thousands and thousands, millions of artists in the world that are so good. All we do is try and enjoy ourselves and paint in our own ways, and I do that in my way, and I share what I'm doing with you. But I'm not going to say what I do is the correct way or the only way. I just have ways that are right for me, and I share those, and then you choose. In this case, he sent me a picture that he did from this photograph, and that's his painting there, and he wanted me to help him improve this. Well, it's not one of my photographs this time. I do prefer to use my own, but this one isn't. It's a very nice photograph. And straight away I can see problems in it. I'll go through those with you in a moment, and we'll try and rectify those by doing a painting ourselves now, watercolour. I've just finished doing all of the acrylics. We'll do a watercolour now of this Venetian scene, and I'll show the ways that I feel it could be improved. If that makes things better, well, fine. But it may not be to your taste even, it may not be what he was after. And there are a lot of good things in Trevor's painting. His drawing is actually quite good. And it's not an easy one to draw either, with the figure and so on, and the boats. But there's a lot of good things in his painting, but all I'm going to do is show ways of improving. If I ever do an Art Society crit, it's a positive assessment. I look at the good things in everybody's work and bring those out first of all, and there'll always be some good things, and then I'll look at the things that I feel, in my opinion, could be improved. That's what we're going to do here. We're going to look at what could be improved, and I'm going to discuss various things that could be done in different ways, because there are so many ways that we could change and adjust this painting. And some of you would agree with some, and some not. You don't agree with all the things all the time in the same way. Right, so for the moment, let's just take a look at that series I just did, of the London series. And as you see here, I put them all together on sheets. We're going to put them together for promotional purposes for the galleries. Just give you an idea of how that collection went. And now we're going back then to do some watercolour with this one of Trevor's. And then I shall be going over to France and hopefully working on plein air again there and doing something totally different. I hope to work with oils again over there as well and do a lot of small studies as well as some larger, much freer work. Right, I know that on this photograph it's been chopped off slightly by the printer in this case, but it's all I needed just to gain what he's done with his work. Let's look at the things that I feel need to be changed straight away before I go on to actually doing the watercolour. First of all, he's no turquoise in his palette here. There's a slight hint of cerulean there, but not much. We can use cerulean, but it'd be better to use turquoise on this. Unfortunately I haven't got my Winsor & Newton paints with me because I have a lovely turquoise in that. But I do have the Russian one, so I'm hoping I can get a similar colour to this turquoise. It's very important in this painting to play the warm and cool blues together. Now this is a warm blue here, it's cobalt and ultramarine, which is a redder blue, and this is a cooler, more icy blue, the cerulean. And then it's the same with the greens. We've got much cooler greens going on here, which play against the warmer greens. Here he's only got the warmer greens, no cool greens at all. Up here in this window, you may decide you don't want the window at all. He's almost lost it, but I actually quite like the greens against the red of the hat, although they do detract slightly. So again, a personal decision. Do you want to have a slight distraction going on here, or do we keep it in to play against the reds? These beautiful blues here is lost completely. It's just gone to warm blues, and they play so much against the reds. If we want something to look warmer, put something cooler next to it. Don't just keep adding warm. And the same with cool. If you want something cooler, add something warmer next to it and it brings out. You can see that here with these lovely warms going on in there against this light blue. And the loss of shadow here and tone. But this area is painted quite nicely. And the drawing's not bad there, and it's got the light. But again, we've got different blues and strengths going on there, and lights and darks. A little bit brighter in colour. His colours have become a bit muddy, I think, in places as well. We want to try and keep cleaner, purer colours if possible. But there's some very nice things going on in this painting. Difficult painting all these stripes and so on. We have to decide how loosely we want to paint this. Are we going to represent this painting very, very tightly, very, very photographically, or are we going to actually just indicate these stripes and so on? Lost and found edges are vital, and he loses nearly all lost and found edges here. We've got sharp edges down here of these reflections, and we've got softer ones. So we've got wet into wet, we've got blended, we've got wet next to dry and so on, which gives hard edges. Soft and hard edges then of these areas, totally lost. Areas where masking can be used down here. We've decided where we're going to have sharp lines and masking. We could use masking fluid on the figure. We could use it certainly on the texturing here of the pattern, down the pole. You know, there are sharp areas like the edge of the boat here, which I think masking fluid would be very useful on, or we've got to go back in with gouache afterwards. These decisions have to be made before we start. Is that post important? He's left it out totally. I quite like the post because it gives a central point, bringing the eye in towards his hat here. So, you know, there's a few points that I want to pick up on almost straight away. How to get these lost and found edges, the warm and cool colours, the tones, vital. It's much cooler here, for instance. He's got a much warmer pink there. That helps to play against the reds. This warmer detracts from the red slightly. These are conscious decisions that you have to make. Down here it's warmer. So we'll have a go at this as a watercolour then, and see how we get on. I've got my Sonnet paints, the Russian watercolours. They're a bit stronger, they're not quite as translucent, but for this job I think it'll do today. And they're very good. They're very good in that they give you a little colour sheet here to show you what they are as well, because some of these colours are difficult to see in the pan. A little pot of water, small mixing palette. So the brush is ready here, and I'm going to use a nice oval mop. I've got two little squares, flat brushes here, and two rounds, a small and a medium, and a rigger in case. So there'll be plenty for this job, I reckon. But first of all, I'm going to need some masking fluid on the very fine lines and lighter areas of this, just to pick out those sharp lights. This Daniel Smith masking fluid today. I've used the SAA dispensers and all sorts. I found a problem with the SAA masking fluid for a while. It was sinking in and melting in, and not probably was old stock. I don't think it wasn't working well at all. This comes from the SAA as well. It's Daniel Smith's applicator. It's quite good. Made the first mistake of shaking it without reading it. And of course it has bubbles then, so don't shake them, just roll them gently. And then when there's no bubbles, you can see I practiced here and bubbles are coming out, but it should then, without bubbles, you should be able to just drag it along and do quite a long fine line. Should soon get the hang of it. So we'll just put some patterns into here first of all. It's supposed to almost run on its own, but it doesn't quite. I just want to make little dots, dashes and patterns across here just to get these very light effects in the watercolour, which I could do going back with gouache, but I'm going to just try and keep to pure watercolour this time, and just the masking fluid. Now I want to paint this going from tight to loose. Normally we go loose to tight in almost any painting, but in this case I want to go the salient points first, and then come back and do the little bit of lights in here and there, because I can't be doing that with the paintbrush that easily. Then there's little points like this, the edging of the boat here, which is quite important. Little points like that there. I just want to drag this fine line of a few bubbles happening, but the side of the boat here, the applicator is very useful for that. But it does tend to bubble, just to give you an idea. And there's a few little dots and dashes of bubbles and things around here that I want to put on Well, it's not too bad now. Once it gets running it's alright, but I don't want it too illustrative, but I do want to get some details in here. The nozzle's coming off there. Just gave me a big blob that I didn't want. Don't need to do too much masking fluid, it's just some of these sharp edges that I wanted. Now that's got to totally dry before I can do any more work on it. Now while I'm waiting for the masking fluid to dry, let's just put a couple of these bits of paint on to show this business about the warm and cool blues. So for instance, if I take my blue-green here, it gives me a lovely turquoise, which is as near as damn it to that there. So we know that colour we're going to need quite a lot, and that's a very cool green. If I take a stronger, warmer blue, say this one, put that next to it, and we get that. Must have got touched with some yellow, but that's a much warmer blue still. Let's come down to this one here, and that should be a warmer blue still. This is more like ultramarine. So you can see the difference that we're going to get. All of these different blues. That's a cooler one again. Then we come down to the purples, which of course is going to be much warmer still. So that's a very warm blue, or it's a cool red. It depends what you, which way you're going, from cool reds to warm reds, or cool blues to warm blues. So we've got a cool blue here and then a warm blue. But that's the difference in these areas here. Look, you can see them. And it's the same with the yellows. If I take this yellow, which is like a lemon yellow, just clean it up a bit. So it got messed up from last time. This is a cool yellow. In other words, it's bluer. But if I take these other yellows, they're much warmer as they come down until we get to this one, which is more orange, and then we come down to this one, which is more orange still. So you see the difference in those. So that's cool to warm in yellows. So we've got our various blues that I'm afraid Trevor totally missed out on. And then of course we're going to go cool and warm reds. So if you take the warm reds, there's this one, that's a cooler red. Both of those are fairly cool reds actually. And of course with the orange it would make a very bright orangey red, so that would be a warm red. This would be a more purple, this is more of a magenta or a rose, and then with the orange it makes more of a cadmium red. And of course we're going to be using more subtle reds as well, such as the burnt sienna there. So there's a full range of colours in one quick go, which shows you the difference in the colours on there that we're going to actually use far more. So if we look at them a little bit closer, you can see then there's this red, which is the cooler red for here, and then there's this red with the orange, which is the warmer red for there. Then we've got the blues, the warmer blues here, and purples into here. Then we've got the turquoise, which is this blue into here, and the greens will be warm and cool greens as well. My worry is that this masking fluid is going to, in the warmth, is going to go really gungy, and it's already doing that. And I found this with some of the SAA masking fluid before. It goes into a liquid rubber right into the paper and just turns into sludge when you try and get it off. And it's happening slightly now, so I do hope that when I finish this watercolour, this masking fluid is going to come off and not ruin it. What I'm going to do next is start working in details on the salient points, such as things like this, trees and so on here, but areas like this, but the figure. Do the salient points first and then go very loosely all around towards the end. And we'll concentrate then on lost and found edges, on sharp and smooth, on hard edges and soft edges, whereas at the moment we just want to get details in. So what I'm going to do first of all is use my medium to larger round, number 10 here, and I think this is dry enough now to work over. We'll tint in the white of the t-shirt first. I'm just going to use a little bit of purple for that. Just a tint of the warm and cool purples, just to give me an undercoat to it before I actually work on the main colour. Down through, and then when that's drier I can start to work on my stripes. While it's still wet, I'm just going to come back with a bit of blue and do that wet into there. Just let that come round. Just tint down into the shadowed areas here to give me more of a feeling of roundness to the t-shirt. Let that dry off. While it's drying again, we'll go back to the flesh tones, and while it's still wet I'm going to drop in some red and a bit of burnt sienna onto this one into there. Just make that really dark under the hat there. Tail it back a bit. Let that warmth come into the collar here where it's very dark. Too blue. Just soften that down a bit with that's far too acid. It wants to be much warmer, that bit there. So just drop that in. Now we're dropping wet into wet here in control. A bit more into just the back of the head here to give the feeling of hair. Just do it softly under there. If I want to lift out a bit, so say I've got a bit too much blue in the hair, I can go back and actually take the brush, dry the brush off and lift it out just a bit. Then go back in with a bit of warmth if I want. So you see how quickly we can make these forms. It's going to be sort of a slight bit of orange reflecting underneath there. So I'm going to just drop a little bit of that in there. Alright, talking about yellows and oranges, take some of the lemon yellow and just come all the way down that pole at the moment. Under this pole with a cool yellow first of all, right the way down here. I've already got my masking fluid on there, disappears here, so there's a break here, it starts again here, and there's a break and then it starts again there. And it comes into much warmer, so I'm going to take some yellow ochre down here, a little bit of orange, and just play that into there. It's fairly hard edged there. I'm going to just let it come off the paper lightly there. So we'll let that dry off. This is going to give me a hard edge when I paint up to it because it will be dry. If we paint wet next to wet we get a soft edge. Let's look at the hat here. Again I want a cooler yellow, so I'm going to use a bit of the lemon yellow just to go across this hat here, all the way through here. Paint that hat right the way through in one go. That should have dried off now, so it shouldn't spread into it. A bit stronger coming down here into this where the red's going to be in a minute. I'm just going to put a bit of yellow there first of all, just to give me a really bright red in a moment. A little bit more warmth and coherence. We don't want green grass, blue sky, brown trees. The light, the overall light, reflects across something and pulls it together. As soon as that's dry I can put the red over it. This is now dry enough here to work on, so I'm going to start with some orange there. I want it fairly detailed here, so I'm going to paint this orange all the way across here. I've already got my light areas done with the masking fluid, providing that masking fluid comes off, and I'm not convinced it's going to yet at all. Right down through here, all the way down and round, nice and bright. We want these lovely bright fresh colours, and dropping red into the yellow will give me that lovely bright freshness, which is now dropping back a bit. That's why I did the masking fluid. All the way down to here, just dotting and dashing it to give an effect of that. But how lovely and bright that is. That warm is actually reflecting into his body as well, so I'm going to put a little glaze of it under the arms and just through down some of this area, so it's all coherently pulling it together and giving that delicacy of watercolour. Now then, round the outside of that, going fairly carefully at the moment because I'm just painting details really, aren't I? We'll just come round there, into there a bit, down here. I'm going to start painting some wet into wet in a moment, and underneath here. And I've got to do this fairly quickly because I don't want hard edges all the way through here. I do want to get some nice soft edges here and there. I'm only going to go as far as that. That's coming through there. Now, into that I want very deep blues. So I'm going to take my, I haven't got a Prussian blue, which I wish I had. I'm going to make the pigment much stronger and really drop that into here to get a lovely dark coming down in lines into that. I'll show you about this warm and cool blue in just a minute, because I'm just about to use it. It can just indicate things, you don't have to go into total detail. Now let's go to one of the cool blues that we talked about earlier. That's the more turquoise one, and we'll just bring that through here and look at the difference it makes immediately. It's totally different to the other blue. Come down to here with it, put it on thinly here, through here, right through there, down to the edge here, through into there. And I'm going to let my warmer blue come into this in just a moment, just to get it a bit stronger. This is really turning gungy, this. I'm very worried that it's not going to come off. I do hate masking fluid, I don't like the stuff really, and didn't want to use it today, but we'll see how it goes. Right, now, continuing with that cool blue, put a wash right through here, and we'll drop that into here. You see, as it dries off now, it's starting to give harder edges, but I've got to try and get this in before it dries off. Alright, and then we can carry on down with those really deep blues we're trying to do. Almost into blacks as we go into there. It gets very, very dark in there. Always come back over that. To let it just spread in slightly here. Now thin the paint down and we just let it blend in here. Don't want to lose my lights completely. Differences in thicknesses of paint, of course, are going to affect transparency of the boat. Shadow just come out onto there a bit. So before it dries, quick get it on, because I can drop more dark into that yet. Just want it as one shape for the minute, and then I can go darker still. So a couple of strokes and we've achieved that. Now while I've got that colour on my brush, let's just look at these stripes on him. Of course they're very important, because if we get these wrong and the drawing of these wrong, it's going to look silly. I'm going to try and get this waviness of these coming out and through and round his body as they go into creases and folds on it. So bit by bit, fairly loosely at first, and then gradually tightening up into the tighter areas before I come back again later and go loose all around it. A lot of work to do yet. And hopefully now you start to see the difference in these warm and cool blues, and that's what I was talking about, Trevor. And you see how I brought the red into the heel there, so that this is all linking together. The depth of it. So we've got a lot of brightness going on now. Let's place some of these blues against the reds here a little bit more now. So we need a few marks like that there. Just get these details sorted out. It's very warm in here, and I'm afraid this masking fluid is not going to come away. If it doesn't, I'll have to go back in with gouache and see. I won't use that stuff again. I'm going to do the same over here on the whole of this. Give a basic wash of these light colours in the background where they're showing, because you can't put them in over the top. You can with oil paint or acrylics, but of course with a watercolour you can't. So I need to get these light colours coming in here before I cut around them. Now I want that lovely turquoise blue again. I want a cool blue to work into this, up into here. I want just a soft wet into wet effect at the moment. It's hard to stop sometimes, because you start something like this and you cannot stop, because if you do it's going to dry. So I'm getting hard and soft edges one into another. Get the effect of the tree in the background. Now that's all cooler colours. Let's start to work into that some warmer ones now. So I'm going to take some yellow ochre and mix that with the same cool green, but yellow ochre with it to make it much warmer. And just drop that in softly to get these soft wet into wet effects at the moment before I come back and actually tidy up. And so look at the difference in that, Trevor. That's what I was saying about warm and cool colours in the greens alone. Right down into here, gradually getting darker and darker. To stronger and stronger with my pigments as I go on. Not warm enough, much warmer, more yellow ochre. I'm going to go much darker into there in just a minute. And as it's drying, I'm starting to pick out little bunches of leaves and leaving those standing out. And I've got to drop some quite dark colours into that and sharpen up in just a minute. So with the deep blue now, with some of that yellow ochre, give me a much deeper blue-green. Maybe even a wee touch of the purple into it actually. Don't want it too strong because it's in the background. Again, you can just drop in colours underneath them, wet into wet, just to give the illusion of plants and flowers there. That green there now. Take a little bit of actual emerald. Just going to bring that into that with some yellow. So we've got that lovely brightness against the colour here. Let's work in the background here. So I'm being fairly detailed with all of this, aren't I? I should have put some bars across there. See if we can scratch those out in a minute. I'm going to need to go to my big brush, I think, next, but I'm going to start to have to work up all of these lovely tones and shades. Is this dry enough yet to work on? Just. Now I was telling you about just working into that. I'm going to put a bit of burnt sienna into my mix now. See if I can just pull out some of these shapes of the branches here. By going in between them, by using little strokes just to draw in between these bunches of leaves and just pick out. Okay, I'm going to start hitting it with the big brush now. We'll really be doing a lot of wet into wet effects. Don't think I'm going to need my flat much at the moment. I'm going to wet it totally. Now I've got to really find some beautiful colours here now. Let's just feel my way around here. I've got that lovely pink tint of this cooler carmine red, if you like. The brush strokes coming through here to give an effect of, slight effect of stone white there. Down through here. Bring some lines through here in just a moment. So find that colour. Let that dry a little bit. While that's drying, I want to drop in some deeper green. Again, we're getting it flooding one into another, and if you're not happy with that, just come back and just lift out a bit so that we've got, but I do want it coherent. I do want it to be, keep that luminosity going of watercolour. Over here, again I want to start with my cool colours, so I'm going to bring in my lemon yellow here first of all, right through, right down here where it's quite strong, the shadows that are coming through here. Just single strokes, keep it nice and clean. Now a bit of blue up into here to play against that. We're going to play our warmer blues against that purple. Now we're into the major part of the actual water. And again, clean water here, all the way across the whole thing. Look how lovely and fresh those colours are. We must get clean colour, that's so vital. So that they pull together. Keep looking for colour, don't stop your colours. It's down here. Now, I've got to do this while it's still wet, so all of this has to be done now while it's still wet. Reflect with the windows coming down into these turquoises. So I'm painting wet on dry here and wet next to wet to try and get these effects of the ripples. So here's wet onto dry. This gives me a harder edge, and then I'm going to go wet into wet in just a moment again. This is my hard edges, wet into dry, and I can put a wash over this in just a moment. Now let's really start to get that into down here. How rapidly this picture's suddenly coming to life now. Soften some of these edges. So we've got hard edges and now we've got some softer edges. So there's our hard edges and now some softer edges. Now I need to go to much, much deeper blues, stronger, warmer blues. A little touch of purple. Really start to bring those in. Much, much more purple still and green. A touch of yellow ochre into there to give it a bit more warmth. And dim it down a bit, there we go. Right round into that boat. So much stronger purples, a bit of yellow ochre to kill it. Across here, we've got to start bringing these ripples through carefully with the tip of the brush. This is again where an oval mop comes in so well because we can use the mop. So we've got now lost and found edges. We've got hard edges and we've got soft edges. And this paper, as I say, it's very unforgiving, this one. It's not letting me lift off at all. Now, there's so many ways we'd have done this watercolour. Some people will say, oh, that's not the way I do it. Do it differently, whatever. Yeah, that's fine, you can. I'm just showing you one way that I'm doing this today. I could do this differently if I did it again. A bit of black into that, I think, as well, to deepen down with this. Really come down with that boat. Bit of green into it. So I hope you've enjoyed this. It was just to show Trevor, really. A few more pointers, eh, Trevor? Just a few more pointers, mate, to really help you get going. I have to hope the masking fluid will come. If this masking fluid comes away, I'm in with a chance because it will bring everything out more, but I'm not convinced it will at all. It may be time now to go back in with a smaller brush. Now this would be the time that I would take off the masking fluid if it's dry enough. Still like to get a little bit stronger on some of those. There we go then, I think we just about achieved what we were going to show there. I still find this a little bit too bright. I'm going to take it back, take a chance, I'm going to take it back with a slight wash of blue. Just one or two brush marks here and there can make such a difference now, that's all we need to do. Darken things down here and there and bring them back again. Well, unfortunately, as I suspected, in this hot weather the masking fluid is not coming off, it's staying as a nasty sort of gunge on there. So what I'm going to do now is come back in with a wet brush and just soften down some of these lights a bit. A bit too crude. And I might just take a little bit of white gouache and just tint around things. They're a bit too white, those. Just soften them down. All we do is just bring the surface colour over them a bit to soften them back. Well, in the absence of white designer's gouache, I'm going to have to use some white acrylic off here because I don't have taken on my others to France. So let's see if I need a bit of white here and there. This is what I can do just with a little bit of white gouache, just to bring things out a bit. You can do it dry brush, so we bring it across the paper. It looks like the paper itself. It's quite fun work to rescue it a bit. So Trevor, if you ever put too much paint on, you need to bring it back. Pick up a bit of white gouache or acrylic and come back into the bugger and no masking for you. See, even the acrylic is sinking in, and I do want nice pure white paints. I'm putting it on quite thickly here to really try and get these sparkles coming back again. That's better. We can do something with it still, rescue it. So this is showing you rescue techniques as well as... Right, starting to fiddle, I'm going to do that, so we'll finish it. And that I hope will do you, Trevor, just to give you an idea. There we are then. I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope it's been useful to you. Just to give you an idea, fairly loosely worked, but it was mainly about the lost and found edges and the warm and cool colours.